With me is Switzerland's State Secretary. He is the top Swiss diplomat here in India, held talks here with the Indian diplomats. So, welcome to WION. It's a pleasure to have you here in India and have a conversation with WION. My first question to you is about your India visit. What has been the key focus? What kind of conversations you had here in Delhi?
That was the annual political consultations we have amongst foreign ministries. And so I came to meet my colleague, Secretary Westley. And this was a very wide-ranging conversation. Traditionally, that type of consultations, you discuss bilateral matters, but also multilateral matters, global issues, regional questions of a geopolitical and geostrategic order. So it was a very comprehensive, wide-ranging exchange, very fruitful and stimulating indeed.
I believe there are some outcomes as well, perhaps signing of MOUs and also focus being on sustainability. How can Switzerland help India in terms of sustainability?
We are indeed focusing on sustainability in our activities here in India together with the authorities and the private sector and also the academic sector of India. We're doing very different many different things. One is a public diplomacy program we are launching tonight, which we call Sustainability with a Plus, where we try to bring together the actors in the service of sustainability. It is indeed a challenge to keep the sustainability agenda on track and to capitalize on this shared sense of purpose we have amongst our two countries and the capabilities our actors, academic, political, business from our two countries can bring together to further the cause of sustainability.
Moving on to investment trade relationship, India and Switzerland have a substantive relationship. Last year, we saw the announcement on TEPA as well. If you can perhaps update on what Switzerland in terms of ratification has done. Also, were reports and of course which is confirmed by the Swiss side, removal of the most favored nation status for India because of a court case. If you can also perhaps update, has it complicated the investment and trading relationship?
First, a word on TEPA. This is really it's a quantum leap in our relationship. This free trade agreement between the EFTA countries, the countries of the European Free Trade Association, amongst them Switzerland and India. And that will condition our bilateral relationship for at least the 15 years to come. There will be a huge influx of investment from those European countries and certainly Switzerland into India. There will be a very considerable job creation by Switzerland and the other European partners of EFTA in India. So it is a very, very important agreement that has been signed. It is now in the process of ratification in Switzerland. As you know, Switzerland's parliament is a bicameral system. So in the first chamber, the agreement was already passed, and it should pass in the second chamber now in the spring session in March. Then there is a delay to see whether we have a referendum in Switzerland. Every international law, every international agreement, every law is subject to a referendum. So we need to see whether there will be a referendum or not. And then we hope in the latter part of the year, or at the very latest at the beginning of next year, that this treaty can enter into force, which will then really be a new dawning in our already very close and fruitful relationship. And the question you refer to about the most favored nation clause, it has nothing to do with TEPA. So this free trade treaty will develop and deploy its effects. And this question is a question of fiscality and is entirely unrelated to it, and it's not a withdrawal of the most favored nation clause through Switzerland. It is Switzerland's adapting to the Indian reading of what the most favored nation clause means in this particular context.
So When it comes to India and Switzerland, focus have been also on innovation, on startups, and perhaps on AI. We just saw the AI Action Summit in Paris, where the Indian and the French leadership were present. How both countries are collaborating on these three areas, something that have been quite emerging and something that India has been focusing a lot. How Switzerland can help in these three areas.
We are partners in that domain as well. When it comes to science, to technology, emerging technology that are rooted in cutting edge science, emerging science, then it is important that as an international community we come together, we capitalize on the capabilities our scientists and researchers have to make sense of what science and technology will allow us to do as an international community, and use those progresses in science and technology for the global commons and for a good and equitable development. And that is a domain we're working closely on. I can name one example. We call it GESTA. That means Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator. This is an organism we created in Geneva that captures emerging science and accelerates the conversation of states, business, scientists, civil society around those questions. They have an annual summit on a ministerial level to which India participated through its chief scientific advisor of the foreign ministry last October. So that is a concrete example of us coming together to do the right thing.
So now my last question, and moving on to not bilateral aspect but international situation. Last year you were here in India when Switzerland was focusing on the peace summit on Ukraine. So essentially, what is your reading of the situation in Ukraine now? I'm asking you this also in the backdrop of what President Trump has said in terms of conversation with the Russian president, his conversation with President Zelensky. How does Switzerland reads it? Do you see the situation seeing a de-escalation, peace coming, or it is a peace that will come at a cost?
Indeed, when I came here last year in May, it was for consultations on the Ukrainian question in the build-up to the peace conference we organized on Lake Lucerne in June last year. And indeed, Secretary West Kapoor then attended this peace summit in Lucerne, which was very important for us and for the cause. Now, how is the situation going to evolve? I think there are different aspects to the question of the military aggression in Ukraine and how the situation can be pacified on the long term. One is the conflict at stake. How can a ceasefire be introduced and the situation pacified? Another question is more of a geostrategic order, geostrategic stability between Russia and the United States, arms control and disarmament questions. And a third aspect is the European security architecture that we need to look into. Those are discussions that are now starting, or when they are already underway, are going to be intensified in the coming days. And those are domains which I exchanged on with my colleague at Foreign Affairs.
And where do you see India's role in terms of the Ukraine situation? Do you see India playing some role now? Because it looks like situation is towards its last leg in terms of the war which is underway.
We will see whether it is the last leg. I fear it will be a very long process. We certainly need all energies and goodwills of all the nations who can contribute, and certainly of India. India is a very important player geopolitically. As Prime Minister Modi said, India has the ambition to resonate the voice of the global south in many different questions geopolitically, and certainly in this one as well. And India has been involved in all the discussions and processes that have led to this first peace conference in Switzerland and in the aftermath of that. So yes, India is much involved in all those conversations.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
With video journalist Ajit Sidhant Sibal for WION in New Delhi.